Hello, Taylor Ellwood here. Welcome to another Magical Experiments video. I thought I'd go live on YouTube. It's been a while since I've done that. And today I'm going to be talking about a question that I see sometimes asked around magical entities. Can you work with magical entities for an extended period of time? Now, there is the school of thought, particularly in chaos magic, which says that if you create a magical entity, you should not work with it for an extended period of time. You should basically have an expiration date baked into the entity. And the reasoning behind that is that the entity will at some point end up turning on you. It'll challenge you or it'll struggle with you. And so it's better to avoid creating an entity that has no expiration date, because eventually it'll become independent and it'll work against you. What I've discovered about that is that I think that advice is a load of bunk. I don't agree with it. And fundamentally, the reason I don't agree with it is because I think that really what is happening is that the magician is basically allowing their own paranoia to be part of the programming of the magical entity. So in other words, if you go in with the expectation of, I'm going to design this magical entity and I'm going to expect that it's going to turn on me at some point, you've basically baked that into the magical entity that you've created. And when you really think about that, it becomes a problematic approach, because you're essentially sabotaging yourself and the entity. You're setting yourself up to fail. I have an entity that I've worked with for over 20 years now called Cervantes. This was the very first magical entity that I developed, and I did not build in an expiration date. I also went in with the understanding that I was going to continually develop a relationship with Cervantes. And to this day, I still have the housing for that entity hung up on my wall as a painting. And I've never had any of the issues that other magicians have talked about when it comes to magical entities. I've never had a magical entity turn on me or rebel against me or sabotage me. I've never had to set an expiration date. It's not because I'm inherently different from other magicians. I mean, other than maybe I have a different perspective on the idea. It's just that I choose to create a collaborative relationship where I'm working with the entity, and I'm as in for its evolution and growth. And I go in with the idea that the entity and I can work together and choose to continually work together, and that we can at the same time negotiate and explore what our relationship could look like. And I have had entities evolve and grow and change. And sometimes they've even signaled that in a way of saying, like, hey, I've done what you wanted, but I want to do more. Can we make that happen? And I've always been open to having that exploration with the magical entity. I think that one of the problems is that we as magicians, is that we have to look at our own preconceived notions around spirit work in general, because what I notice in general is that there is this level of paranoia built into spirit work that essentially says spirits are going to turn against you. You can't trust them. You have to basically be prepared for them turning on you. As long as we hold that particular belief, we are going to necessarily sabotage ourselves and sabotage the ability that we have to work with those entities in a meaningful and real way. So one of the things that I would recommend that you do or look into doing is really explore what are the preconceived ideas, training, beliefs, et cetera, that I'm bringing into this magical working. If I have a limited belief that I am going to get in the way of what my magical practice is going to do, if I have a limiting belief in that way, is going to necessarily sabotage and get in the way of everything I'm trying to do. And I think that it really does a disservice to ourselves and each other, and really to our magic in general, when we come in and we don't examine the ideas and beliefs that we have around how magic works. And instead, we just subscribe to this idea of, well, the magical entity is going to turn on me. The magical entity is going to work against me. Or the magical entity is going to, it needs to have an expiration date because I can't trust it. When you bake that particular belief into your magical working with an entity, you've already set yourself up for failing, and you've set the entity up to fail as well. So one of the things that I would really suggest is that we challenge the limiting belief around magical entities, that we challenge the idea that a magical entity is going to work against us. And then we do that by being willing to experiment. So one of the ways I would experiment is create an entity without having an end date in mind. And create the entity with the idea that you and it can have an ongoing conversation, an ongoing connection and relationship that's collaborative. You may discover as a result that it gives you something significant to work with in terms of that entity. And I would say that Sarantis, which is the oldest entity, he's an opportunity entity. He has improved his ability to find opportunities over the years for me and to refine them based on me. It's basically like he's an algorithm for my life at this point. An algorithm that is informed nonetheless by my own evolution and growth, and that is part of how he evolves. And there's something really beautiful and powerful about that. So that is my thought on this particular topic. I wanted to share it. I also wanted to mention that on January 26, 2026, Sheena and I are doing a live entity craft challenge where for 14 days we're going to actually be exploring the practice and art of experimenting with magical entities. And we're going to be sharing some new practices around it that I haven't written about before. So if you're curious about that, you can click on the link in the show notes. And incidentally, this will be something that is live afterwards. It won't be like live in the sense of like we're actively doing it at the time, but it will be available to anyone who wants to take the challenge afterwards. But if you're curious about it now and you want to actually join in a live supported environment where you're part of a cohort, then I would welcome you to do that. All right, thanks for watching and have a great evening.